I know with the ever-changing, ever-evolving world of technology today, and we sort of play in the CRM kind of space, and it's super important for us to be able to access tools, through APIs to make integrations, and so we're not like having multiple points of entry and that kind of carry-on.
Providing that information in a structured process where you get that consistent outcome. It's all automated through, if it's a digital system, and then tracked and recorded in that system. If they've got access to it where they can change and amend it if it's whatever needs to be applicable to that client or to that business owner for the tasks that they're completing.
Glenn, welcome to the Sideshed podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having us on the show.
I was about to say welcome back, and then I realised it's not really welcome back because the first one didn't work.
Take two.
Take two, that's it. How's things, mate?
Yeah, going good. Busy, always busy on our end. So but everything's going good. Progressing along.
Good to hear. So you're tuning in today from Worx Safety, WORX Safety at worxsafety.com.au. And we're here today to talk a bit about WHS and some compliance-related things. So do you want to give us a bit of an overview as to who you are and what you do before we jump on in?
Yep, definitely. So one of the co-founders of Worx Safety, so online safety software. My background is in the building and construction industry for the past 24 years. So I started out in the plumbing industry, running and owning and operating plumbing company, and then moved into completing the builder's license, and then moved into running and owning a residential building company. So from our side, to know how to run and manage businesses and know how hard it is for businesses for their WHS requirements. So 10 years ago, we set out to develop a complete online digital safety software for businesses to automate and streamline their WHS requirements. So to try and solve that problem in and around the paperwork and spreadsheets in the office, and then move, towards a simple to use software. So for business owners, they need a well-structured system in place. So that's where we've come from. So when we look at our story and the lessons that we've learned as business owners, and working with industry professionals, we've looked to create a well-structured framework to deliver an outcome in a turnkey product.
Flamework.
A bit of flamework.
sounds WHS worthy. That's one of the things I remember having to create swims on, like whenever we had to do any welding or anything. It's like, where are your swims? I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah, Hotworks and yeah.
Yeah, Hotworks, that's it.
Yeah.
So I guess we've got two different audiences that listen to the show. One would sort of be on the commercial side, where they'd be doing developments and things like that. Some of the listeners would be working for principal contractors, such as builders and those kind of things, property managers, etc. And then the other one would obviously be the residential home service sort of sector, which you got your plumbers, sparkies, and all those kind of guys.
Yep.
So I think probably the best play would be just to get the conversation rolling around maybe different types of compliance required for the different types of businesses, and see where it takes us. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So when you're back in your plumbing game, were you in the residential space, or was it more commercial plumbing?
Yeah, I started off in doing just the maintenance renovations through my apprenticeship, but then I was lucky enough to get a job with my TAFE teacher. He got us on board, and then we end up doing high-end residential commercial properties, and that's kind of structured us in a way of how to run a business correctly, and then move from there. We moved into generating our own company, and from there we were doing residential, commercial. Then we moved into more government sectors towards the end of it. So yeah.
So I guess there's like a lot of different types of businesses which have a lot of different layers of red tape and compliance, right? And sort of I guess once you get into government, it's a different game altogether.
Yeah. So when you look at the resi, it's just the basics, getting the white card, any high risk work license, and kind of details they've got to cover. But then, when we look at moving in towards the government sectors, police checks, working with children, depending on the requirements that they need to capture through that onboarding. So, trying to tailor that towards what they need and what their requirements are for this company specific, obviously.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my last, I suppose, exposure to this conversation on the practical end would have been when I was, running, plumbing projects and things like that, 15, 20 odd years ago. And I remember back then thinking, man, I feel like I can't get any work done. There was just so much. I mean, back then, I guess it was all also kind of paper, fold, like 100,000 folders sitting in the site shed that's where the name came from. But, with things you had to fill out every day and swims and safety reports and, all this kind of stuff. And it felt like you never get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much where that's what we're trying to look to solve pretty much. So when, we come out of doing our apprenticeship or getting your license through, we've got limited access to what we actually need to have in place. So it's pretty much having that structured system in place for everything they need to cover, and then just going through those steps. So completing those steps for everything associated to the risk to their company, and then the on-site side of it as well. So yeah, knowing, obviously you've been there, paperwork side of it as well. It's what do you need to do? How do you do it? How do you complete it? How do you track and record it? Hopefully not for clients or businesses, if they've got an incident or if something happens down the track, how do you provide that evidence? Or, how do you store that data too?
So evidence through like the logging, the meetings and the paperwork and whatever?
Yeah, so it's, at the company level. So that's, what's the risk to your business? So your contractors that you engage, so their insurances, their workers' compensation, their workers, so having their access to those workers' information, and then obviously site-specific. So for those workers, the site-specific inductions they're completing, swims associated, what documentation that you've held and kept for those sites as well, but then tying in that quality side of it as well.
So the types of places that you could potentially get audited in the instance of something going wrong would be like ASIC or Worx Safety. Like who's going to audit you in these instances? Is it the insurance companies directly? Like who comes after you in the instance of something going wrong?
Yeah, so in the event that something goes wrong, the Worx Safety is going to be the one that's going to come down and prosecute you, but then obviously the insurance companies as well. So if you have an incident on site, so if say it's a subcontractor related incident, you've got their details and information, that could tie down into that workers' comp policy for that subcontractor. But, years down the track, it could be 2 years down the track, they'll come back to you. If you're a builder or you're a principal contractor, they'll come back to you for those details in relation to that site, what happened on site, all the events that led up to that and what, providing those details, and obviously the insurance side of it as well. So if you don't have your public liability in place for your contractors and details, if something happens on site, it can come back to that, principal contractor on their insurance policies. So it's obviously going to cost them more money.
In your experience, is it pretty common to see that is it pretty common to see businesses that are just unsure of what their responsibilities are in terms of compliance?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for business owners, just what they need to cover, like, some systems or paper-based systems, they think they might be covered, but capturing all the areas of what they need to do. So, it's from the top down. So the business, like we said before, if it's contractors, if it's inductions, if it's training, but then their asset side of it as well, so their vehicles, how they maintain their vehicles, their pre-starts, their regos, in the event that there was an incident with, a car accident, providing that details around the servicing, pre-starts and everything associated to their assets, and obviously machinery as well.
Yeah, sure. What are the differences between a commercial sort of trade, but let's say a commercial electrician and a residential electrician in terms of required compliance, documentation, certifications?
Yep. So resi guys, obviously it's all small maintenance kind of crews. It's this same kind of principles have got to be in place. So if it's a high risk work activity, you need a safe work method statement. It's going to outline how you're going to do your task or that activity. Same with commercial. On a smaller scale side of it, best practice is having like some trainer packages in place. So you've got your SOPs, which outlines, your power tools, those details for your team and for your workers. And then you're providing that to your team and you're outlining those details, because some of those little jobs that they're going to, they might need a swims or, they might do the risk assessment associated to their tasks they're doing on site, but having that set in place where they're going through that training specific to the company and then outlining those details. But then when you look at the commercial side of it, they've got to have all their swims outlined. They've got to have all their assets with their pre-starts. Most of the time they're going to provide it to the principal contractor. And then, if it's ITPs, those details as well, specific to that commercial side of it, that they need to have in place and obviously provide to the builder or principal contractor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so is that kind of where the lines get, I suppose, crossed over with, like from a compliance certification point of view? Okay, we need safe work method statements for this thing, but then the SOPs are kind of, well, this is me showing proof of me training my team on how to do, these actions.
Yeah. And that's where it can get confused, like you don't need a swims for power tools. You might have an SOP for the team and how they need to safely operate those power tools. But that obviously just ties into one of the steps within the safe work method statement. So, right. Yeah, the training associated that you need, obviously we say that, the systems and the processes for your company, outline them, and then that's, outlined for the workers in the team so they can review it. But your swims are applicable to your high-risk work activity that you're going to complete. Okay,
sure. So is part of this cadence, does it involve training? Like we used to do toolbox talks back when I was, running jobs, and that was like a weekly thing where you sit down with the team and you pick a subject and you go over that and you document it and you have everyone tick that they were present and all that kind of carry on. Is that still the same thing?
Yeah, it still is. Yeah, but then recording it. So that's the thing, like if you're doing it paper-based, it's, you do it, then where's it going to go? Be in the ute or in the office and try and find it. But providing that information in a structured process where you get that consistent outcome. So if it's in relation to safety alerts or training where you can provide that information, it's all automated through, if it's a digital system, and then tracked and recorded in that system.
And would you then essentially be giving access to whoever needs it for those, for that ledger? So, if a builder's like, well, can you show us all of the swims and all of the training and whatever that you guys have put in place? Is that where you could provide that access, or is that like a download sort of scenario?
Yeah, no, we definitely do. So we've pretty much got like a turnkey products, and we work with safety consultants as well. So we've got like, your plumbers package, your electrical packages, your builders packages, pretty much any trade business. So then they've got everything within that turnkey product. So SOPs, swims, forms, so the incident side of it, so incident management and all that side of it, which is in the system, pretty much ready to go. But then obviously they've got access to it where they can change and amend it if it's whatever needs to be applicable to that client or to that business owner for the tasks that they're completing.
I know back in the day we came across a couple of scenarios where builders would have their own specific processes and they weren't really very interested in you having your own. Do you ever come across that?
Yeah, I think that's turning a fair bit now. I think the more of the responsibilities going back onto that contractor. They're carrying out that high risk work, so they need to be responsible for how they're going to complete their work and their tasks. Where the builders should be taking a backward step and just making sure that they've got the controls in place and the systems in place for their high risk work activity. Obviously, to legislation, they should be obtaining a copy of that swims or their details and holding it in and against those sites for reference for future dates. But yeah, it's definitely more so back onto that contractor. Ultimately, it's up to the contractor to have it in place.
I know with the ever-changing and ever-evolving world of technology today, and we sort of play in the CRM kind of space, and it's super important for us to be able to access tools, through APIs to make integrations, and so we're not like having multiple points of entry and that kind of carry-on. Is that something that you see evolving in the WHS space also?
Yes, it definitely will be. So the integration between job management softwares and like safety softwares like ours, that's where it just links up between the two. So if it's creating a site or a job within one platform, it ties across, it populates within the other one, swims, forms, pre-starts, those details, so they sync up across.
Yeah, sure.
Bringing those two together.
Yeah, and so what are some of those? I guess are some of those job management platforms you mentioned, like the known ones with APIs, your Simpros and your Service Mates and those kind of programs?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
So like with the integration with Simpro, so obviously the integration with Simpro syncs up those suppliers, contractors, workers in the system. As soon as they create a job within Simpro, it populates within Worx. As soon as they complete a form or a SWIMS, that ties back into that job. So yeah, just trying to simplify that process between platforms.
Well, no, it's super important because it's like if it's not there in the one place, it just doesn't typically get done. And can you build policies around, I suppose, those the jobs being done where okay, you can't start this project until there is a SWIMS completed? Like, is it kind of that level of integration?
Yeah, there is, and that's like even within our company, we've got we use Works for the onboarding of our sales staff, our team, programmers. So just that system and the process, we tie in or we can tie in training packages on how to use Simpro, how to use those other softwares.
Right.
So that's in there. But then when it ties across, that's just within our system, you can assign those digital safe work method statements through to those sites, allocate your team members, and then when they sign in, it's just simple and easy. It comes up for them to review, sign off on, and that's all recorded in and against those sites or jobs.
So you mentioned before that you like the I won't say the total responsibility, but there's a lot more obligation being passed back to the contractor as opposed to years back it was sort of all the builders requesting all this stuff. Is that kind of where you're seeing this? Like there's more like this trending towards it being more up to the contractor to just to know like and have the documentation done as opposed to it coming from the guy paying the bills?
Yeah, well, they definitely for work or tenders or those details that they're going for. If it's a commercial side of it for, electrical company, plumbing company, whatever, they will want to know that you've got, or it could even be within the tender process that you have a system in place.
Right.
And obviously, when you get to the job, you've got to provide all that information, or you should be prior to that work starting.
Where is I'm curious this WHS space evolving in the space of these new technologies coming into the workplace, like wearables and all these different cool techs. Even I mean, I don't know how relevant the AI conversation would be at the level of the guys out on site, but like, what is it looking like in the future?
Yeah, it's just simplifying those processes. Like obviously with AI and those details, security side of it, but those details are going to simplify it even more. So obviously with the digital systems now, if you haven't got those digital systems in place, you're going to be missing out with those companies. So to grow and go forward, you definitely need those systems in place to help within the workplace and obviously for the business and the business owners as well. But yeah, all those devices is only going to aid in time saving for the businesses.
I know years ago I went to a trade show and there was a guy that had a prototype product where essentially, and it was prototype because it was completely like I think it cost them like 60 grand development fees to develop this one demo kind of thing. But it basically you pull a pair of like Google glasses on, and they had developed it so that you could see the stack work, the plumbing stack work on the ceiling of the building. And I was like, that's amazing. And then I was watching people that were wearing them, and everyone's just like walking in, tripping over shit, walking into walls. And I was like, oh man, this is a nightmare. Like
Yeah,
and then I was just thinking, like people, driving with them on, just running into the back of parked cars and just walking into telegraph poles and just things like that.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely coming. Like we can do that now, like virtual reality training, like on appliances and those types of details where you can 3D scan it. You can itemize like, the hazardous areas and kind of provide that training in and around like those assets in certain areas or, commercial properties and those kind of details. So yeah, things like that, will, definitely improve, especially from the training perspective as well.
I mean, I imagine though, like with something like safe work method statements, safety audits, and all those kind of things, the power of the power of these things lie in the fact that people are manually completing them so they understand this is a potential hazard and these are the measures we need to take to mitigate any possible, dilemmas. And then all of a sudden you throw AI into the mix and there's a bot creating your swims for you and no one knows what the heck's going on nor cares. So like where do you think that's heading in terms of like accountability?
Yeah. Well, you still got to be accountable. So that principal contractor's still got to be accountable for reviewing and having those details in place. And that's obviously it's different between each company. So what one company does compared to another company is obviously different of what their works and their processes are. So that ties into the risk matrix associated to their company at a company level as well. But yeah, you can pull the details across. But like you said, they're still got to understand that process. So at the end of the day, you're just trying to step out the process of how to complete their works and how to complete their work safely. Most of the time it's in a template where they're following those steps, but being able to engage, change and amend that live on site specific to their task and the hazard on site. So you can pull across the details, but still they've got to understand it and be able to change and amend it where they need to.
You mentioned before that there's, I was going to ask, what the best place to get started, but you mentioned before, there's like plumbers packs and there's builders packs and all this kind of thing. What are some examples of some of the compliance documentation, certifications, whatever you want to call it, that comes as part of, say, a residential plumbing pack? And then same question for like a commercial build. I mean, is that like a list, like a Rolodex? Is it huge, or is it like just a handful of things you've got to have done?
It can be huge. So on a base level, you're just covering your requirements that you need to meet and you got to hit. Like you got to hit the points around your contractors, your workers, your inductions, your training, and then the on-site side of it. But then when we go to a higher level, if it's a client, and they want to get their ISO accreditation, which, most of the time for us, it's a good thing because they've got all their systems in place. So, plumbing company electrical at a lower level, it's just details they need, but then you can go all the way up to a higher level. And that's just more training, more policies, more registers and details that all ties in that system. Yeah. So, but yeah, at a simple point, it's covering what you need to cover for your workers, capturing their details, the induction that you need to provide to those workers, outlining, their task and how they work safely. Obviously, the training, and that training side ties into it with, their SOPs, operations, anything associated to the job management side of it as well, swims, forms, sites, and like the asset side of it as well. So
I know there's like we work with quite a few commercial industrial clients, and they have like pre-induction training, so they've gone through and done like a CM3, certification and like all those kind of things.
Yep.
Are they the sort of things that would live in the software? So if ever called on, they're available.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it is. It's pretty much just that digital system instead of a paper-based system where everything's automated through a digital platform. So obviously within the office staff don't have to keep track of the spreadsheets and details. The system does it all for you. So automated reminders, all that information, inductions, training, the system, once it's in there, it does it all for you. But then the auditing side of it as well. So the CM3...
Actually, how do you keep it current? Like how do you... the reminder, okay, we need to do a toolbox talk, like all those kind of things. Like that cadence comes as part of the suite, does it?
Yeah. So what obviously what we try and do is make less work for the business owner and then put more onus back onto the contractors and back onto the workers. So through the automation, 30 days out, say a high-risk work license is going to expire, that worker would be notified. 14 days out, they'd be notified again. And then at 7 days, that's when the head contractor or the owner of the system would be notified and on expiry. So obviously trying to make less work for the builder, the business owner, put more onus back onto the contractor or worker. They can simply just upload that straight off the app or from the portal. So, and then obviously inductions, training, that's all automated through the system. But then from an audit perspective, everything's when they need to, it's there.
Is there like a general rule, or is it specific to the task at hand in relation to how often, say, a safe work method statement needs to be updated?
Yep. Yeah, the inductions training depends on the client, 2 years, yearly, depends on what it is. Safe work method statement, obviously, if it's site specific, if it's a high risk task, so say they're doing a roof replacement, they'll go through, do that swim to that roof replacement. They'll create it. If things change on site, that's when they should be reviewing it. So, it could be weather conditions, could be a crane on site. For smaller operations, most of the time, it's pretty rare that they will review it. On a commercial basis, so say they're doing a large commercial project and they're doing a roof work on that, they'll have their swims, but that could be revised 3 or 4 times because you might have other contractors on site, you might have a crane on site, the weather conditions, whatever it might be, that's when they will be reviewed and revised. But some clients might want to revise those monthly, 3-monthly, which they can set. Yeah, okay. But that's the thing where it's when they do. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we just lagged there for a sec. What were you saying?
Yes, those swim side of it, it's just that's kind of, specific to what they need for site.
Okay. Mate, is there anything that you think we should wrap up on or cover off on before we close off?
No, that's about it really, yeah. Just pretty much just for the clients out there, if they need to get in contact with us.
Yeah, sure. We'll have all your details. But for you guys out there, if you're not up to speed with this stuff or you think you need an audit or whatever, head across to Worx with an X, worxsafety.com.au. And I'll put links to all that in the show notes, guys. So if you head across to the siteshed.com, if you're driving or whatever, you can just type in Glen into the search bar there, and this episode will show up, probably with 15 other Glens, but you'll have to filter through and find it. But it shouldn't be that hard. Yeah, awesome, mate. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. I know it's a ever evolving space, and it's good to have some technology put in to simplify the way these things work. So yeah, appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks for having us on the show. And yeah, if anyone out there ever wants to go through the system, reach out, free demo, and we can run you through how the system works and how we can help.
Is there like an audit that someone can take if they're considering how compliant they are, or is it just like just do the demo, take them through it?
Pretty much, take them through the demo and outline kind of what their requirements are and what they need to have in place. And obviously, if they haven't got it in place, where we can just set that up directly for them.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, mate, I appreciate that. If you guys have got any questions, let us know. Otherwise, that is a wrap. Hey guys and girls, how would you like all of the value adds left behind from our podcast guest all put together in the one spot? We've pulled every tool together, every template, every resource shared on the show, and we've packed them all into the Tradie Academy. It's free to join and it's built by the team behind the Site Shed and Tradie Web guys. Inside, you'll get marketing tips, business tools, and first access to future resources, all in one simple dashboard. Just head across to tradie.wiki/pod. That's tradie.wiki/pod. The link's in the episode description. And once again, you just log in once and then you're all set. And if you want to get notified of upcoming episodes, hit subscribe or follow.